This Atlanta Braves team is certainly more than talented enough to win a World Series in 2025, but what is the one key thing that will increase their chances of holding up that trophy at the end of 2025? I'll tell you what I think that is on today's episode of Locked On Braves, so let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastroianni. You can follow me on social media at Shortstop Ball. Check out the podcast there at LockedOn_Braves and on Instagram at just Locked On Braves. And if you're new and watching this on YouTube, please do me a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up button, leave me a comment down below. It does help us out a ton whenever you do those things. And if you're listening on the audio version, you can help me out by leaving me a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so much for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. We are just 1 week away from opening day for Major League Baseball, and I cannot wait to get things started. On today's podcast, I'm going to tell you what the one key thing is for the Atlanta Braves to win the World Series in 2025. I'm also going to get to some of your comments on what you think is the biggest key. Spoiler alert, many of you said health, but outside of that, what do the Atlanta Braves need to do this year to win the World Series? We'll talk about all that on today's episode and get into Wednesday night's spring training game. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Well, going into every year, I like to look at just that one key area that I think will make the biggest difference towards the Braves winning a World Series. And I guess before we get to that, we should back up a second, because in order to win a World Series, you have to get to the postseason. And I don't mean to just glaze over that. But as I said last year, it would take a disastrous amount of injuries for this team to not make the postseason. And that almost came to fruition last year. They had a disastrous rash of injuries, and they still won 89 games to make the postseason. So look, the Braves are in a window. They expect to get to the postseason. I know Brian Snitker is going to tell you it's all about just, winning the division. That's their goal. Getting a seat at the table. That's the goal. And I get that. I understand that. But especially with the expanded postseason, with the talent this team has, again, unless just half of the top of the order gets injured again for a significant period of time, and even then, they still got a chance to make the postseason. So again, I'm not trying to put the cart in front of the horse here, but this is a team that it would take a lot for them not to get to the postseason. Last year was just about as disastrous as a season. I know I've already used that word 3 times, but it was a terrible season in terms of injuries, and they still won 89 games and reached the postseason. Yes, it took some fantastic pitching to get there, but they had a lot go against them last season, and they still got to the postseason. So unless that just happens again, this is a team that should be in the postseason, is expected to be in the postseason. But we all know from the last 3 years what happens once you get there and what is the key once you get there. And that's really where my focus is going to be. I'm going to get to some of your comments as well, which are more driven towards getting to the postseason. But my focus for this podcast is what needs to happen for the Braves. What do we need to see in the regular season to have more confidence in this Atlanta Braves team going into a potential postseason series and believing that they have a better chance to advance? Look, I thought, except for last year, I thought 2022, 2023, everything I saw in the regular season told me that they could advance and win a World Series. So again, we've seen years where they showed us what they needed to. It just didn't come to fruition in the postseason. Last year, we pretty much all knew that team was going to be one and done in the postseason. But what do I need to see this year specifically from this Braves team to give me more confidence going into the postseason? And the biggest thing for me was offensive approach. I really believe that's the biggest key to the Braves winning a World Series this year and in years to come. We can talk about all of the injuries to the starting rotation going into the last 3 postseasons, and those are legitimate. What I would have liked to have a Charlie Morton instead of a Bryce Elder in Game 3 of the 2023 season? Yes, certainly. Would I have liked to have Chris Sale for Game 1 last year? Yes, Certainly. Would I like to add a healthy Spencer Strider, a healthy Max Fried going into the 2022 postseason? Yes, certainly. Those would have helped. But in all of those postseason series, the biggest issue was offense and not being able to score and not being able to manufacture runs. That has been the biggest problem for the Braves in the postseason over the last 3 years. And I think a lot of that is due to their approach, which can work in the regular season and can work against 3, 4, 5 starters in a rotation, but come postseason time where you're not going to get those big 2, 3 run homers, this team offensively has really struggled to score and fallen apart. And that's going to happen for a lot of offenses in the postseason where you're going to be facing good arms all the time. You're not going to have a manager bringing in their 7th, 8th reliever in the 6th, 7th inning of a game because their best guys need a day off. Their best arms are going to throw every day. And that's just what you're going to see in the postseason. So obviously, offenses are going to be a little bit more suppressed in the postseason, but the Braves are just too talented and too good to struggle as much as they have last year, notwithstanding. We knew last year, just with the injuries going in and the offense we've seen all year, was going to be a huge problem with them. You had a lineup that featured half of Ozzie Albies. He could only hit from one side, and he was batting in the 2-hole. You had Ramon Laureano, Gio Urshela, Travis d'Arnaud, Orlando Arcia, all batting at the bottom of your order, again, with half of Ozzie batting in the 2-hole. So you knew that was going to be a tough offensive battle for the Atlanta Braves. But more specifically, talking about the 22 and 23 seasons, that group has been good enough that they should have produced more than they did. And I want to give you I'm going to run down some stats here, so bear with me, but I'm going to run down some stats from the last 3 or 4 postseasons. In 2024, obviously only 2 games, and it was a broken lineup, but they struck out 33.8% of the time and walked just 1.5% of the time. They had 1 walk in the 2 games. Again, very small sample size. They were 0 for 7 with runners in scoring position, something they struggled with all last year. 1 RBI with the runner in scoring position and 4 Ks in those 7 at-bats. And I'm going to compare all these to the team that won the World Series that year. You look at the Dodgers, they had a 19.7% strikeout rate. They had an 11.8% walk rate. They had a 255 batting average on balls in play. That's not anything spectacular by any means. They had a 278 batting average with runners in scoring position. That is pretty solid. So those are all really good numbers. Those are numbers you're looking for, numbers you're shooting for as an offense to have sustained success. And it's also not completely fair because I'm comparing them to teams that won the World Series. So you get a larger sample size. Obviously, short sample sizes in baseball don't tell you too much. In 2023, the Braves had a 24% strikeout rate and a 7.8% walk rate in that Phillies series. That's not bad. What really killed them in that Phillies series, they had a 228 batting average on balls in play. The only team lower in that postseason was the Dodgers at 222. They also got bounced in the first round. Nobody else in that postseason had a BABIP below 260. And the next lowest were the Marlins at 261. So Braves and Dodgers, you want to blame the layoff if you want. For whatever reason, in that 2023 postseason, 2 of the best offenses in baseball were terrible and had some terrible batted ball luck. Maybe it's just baseball and you chalk it up to that, but just pretty incredible. They are also 167 with runners in scoring position that postseason. Just nothing went the Braves' way in that 2023 postseason except for that 1 game that they did win. The Rangers that year, they had a 21.9% strikeout rate and 9.7% walk rate. Those are great numbers. I would certainly take that. They had a 285 average on batted balls in play. That's fantastic. And a 291 average with runners in scoring position. That's fantastic. Those are all great numbers. That's the numbers of an offense I would expect to win a World Series. In 2022 for the Braves in that postseason, they had a 30.1% strikeout rate. And I get it. They had to face the Phillies in both of those postseasons, and they have really good pitching. But still, 30% strikeout rate. It's not going to get it done. A 7.9% walk rate, that's okay. Would love to see that, closer to 9. A 225 batting average on balls in play in that postseason. And again, I think you have to put a lot of that into the pitching of the Phillies. It was just really, really good, but it's also some terrible luck for the Atlanta Braves. They had a 273 batting average with runners in scoring position that postseason, which is solid. You look at the Astros that year, 23.3% strikeout rate. That's, not great, but it's also not bad. It's not like the Braves at 30%. A 6.9% walk rate, also not great. They had a 276 batting average on balls in play. That's solid. And 233 with runners in scoring position. I mean, those are not great offensive numbers, and yet somehow the Phillies still lost that World Series. But, the strikeout rate, that is a little bit better and more in line with what you would want. Pretty low walk rate and pretty low average with runners in scoring position. One thing also to note about the Braves in the last 3 postseasons, and it's not like they did this incredibly in that 2021 postseason either, but in the last 3 postseasons, they've had 4 stolen bases and 1 caught stealing. They've attempted 5 stolen bases. And again, I'll point out, in 2 of those postseasons, you were facing JT Realmuto behind the plate, who has one of the best pop times in all of baseball. Not many people run on him, but it's just another element. You add a 30% strikeout rate, below 8% walk rate, and you're not able to steal bases or hit with runners in scoring position. It really, as I've said a lot, it comes down to one element. Are you going to get the home runs? And that was the difference in 2021. They got the home runs, and they got the big home runs in big moments. But even in that postseason in 2021, it was a 27.5% strikeout rate, an 8.3% walk rate. Again, not terrible. Okay. A 309 batting average in balls in play, though. They got this the one year out of the past 4 postseasons that they got some luck go their way. A 242 average runners in scoring position still isn't great. So again, even in 2021, those aren't great numbers that I would typically look at for a team to win a World Series, but just happened to be that year they got all the big home runs at the right time. And so you can see with this, some of it is kind of fluky with the batting average on balls in play. You get that in a short series in baseball. You just have to live with that and know it's the nature of postseason baseball and short series. Sometimes that's going to happen. The walk rates outside of 2024 have been okay. Again, I would like to see that closer to 9, but they've been fine. The strikeout rates in 2024 and 2022, though, are way too high. And even 2021 at 27% isn't great. It's really just that 2023 season, which is when they had their best offense ever, that the strikeout rate was okay. But outside of that, they've been striking out 27% or more over the last 4 postseasons. The past 2 postseasons, they've been awful with runners in scoring position, which is another number that can be kind of fluky, but I think it is a point of emphasis that this team needs to have. So I say all that. What does all this mean? What do I need to see from this Braves team in 2025 to feel more confident in this offense going into a potential postseason series? And for me, it really comes down to more disciplined at-bats in game planning. The Braves have been in the bottom half of the league the last several years. This is the regular season I'm talking about now, in chase percentage, while also having one of the highest swing percentages and one of the lowest zone contact percentages. So to simplify that for you, what it means is they're swinging a lot, they're missing a lot, they're swinging at a lot of bad pitches. And if Tim Hyers can not take that aggressiveness away that has worked out so well for them and led to a lot of power, go up there, hunt your pitch. If you don't get it, okay, let's battle. Let's have an at bat now. But instead, it's just go up there, look for your pitch, swing, swing, swing until you get it, and that's it. And that's really been the approach of this offense. There just hasn't been good enough plate discipline up and down that, okay, you go up there and you guess first pitch, you guess wrong, you're behind in the count 0-1. And this is something that where you really do miss a Freddie Freeman, because he would do this. He ambushes a lot. He talked about in the World Series how he ambushed on that big home run that he had. But if he missed that pitch or whatever, he fell behind in the count, Freddie would work it back to 2-2, 3-2 in the at-bat. You just don't see that a lot with these Braves hitters. And if that is something that Tim Hyers can build into this team, into this offense, I think that's going to go a long way. If we look towards the end of the year and the Braves strikeout rate is down more, around 22%. It was 20% in 2023. I think that's asking a lot. But even if it can sit somewhere below, we'll just say 24% conservatively. If their walk rate is around 9% and their chase rate is down around 27%, I think we'll see a noticeable difference in how this offense operates. And that we'll see an offense that can be more consistent in scoring runs and be better built for the postseason. Again, if they can do those things and it can carry into the postseason, I feel much more confident about this group's ability to score runs in different ways, to manufacture more runs, and to score in the postseason without waiting on that 2 or 3 run homer that just doesn't come as often in the postseason. So that's the key thing for me, what I'll be looking for in the Braves in 2025. And that's the biggest key for me to see the Braves be able to win a World Series in 2025 is the offensive approach. Do we see better plate discipline? Do we see better at bats from this team up and down the roster? Next, I want to get to some of your comments, what you think is the biggest key for the Atlanta Braves to win a World Series in 2025. We'll look at those here next. Get the supplies you need from the site that's made for the skilled trade, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. There's nothing better than catching an MLB game live at the crack of the bat, the roar of the crowd, the smell of the ballpark food. And if you're looking to go last minute, Game Time makes getting tickets easier than ever. With last minute deals, all-in prices, and a lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the stress out of buying MLB tickets. Plus, ticket prices drop as Game Time gets closer, meaning you can score an incredible deal. Game Time is the official ticketing partner of Locked On, and as MLB season is coming up, I can count on them to help grab tickets that meet my needs. I still need tickets to the Braves home opener, and I will be going to Game Time for that. The Game Time Picks feature makes finding the best deals effortless. It filters out the fluff and highlights the top discounts in the stadium. And I love that I can preview my exact seat before purchasing. No bad surprises when I get to the stadium. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Well, thank you so much for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. A lot more content coming your way this week, and then a lot more next week as well as we gear up for opening day. So make sure you subscribe to Locked On Braves wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. And make sure you check out Locked On MLB with Sully for your second listen of the day. Well, let's get into some of our listener comments. I asked you, what do you think is the biggest key for the Braves winning the World Series in 2025? And Sam Peebles and 20 others said health is the obvious answer for any team going into a season. But besides that, what are you more looking at for this Braves team to feel more confident in them reaching that goal in 2025? Some people went a little bit further onto the health side of things. Howie Brewer said being healthy at the right time. Injuries are inevitable and players will miss time during the season. We just need a full squad in October. Braves and Bama said being healthy and hot October 1st. Ollie said health and the Dodgers imploding. I don't know about you. I want to take on the Phillies. I want to take on the Dodgers. My perfect World Series run would be taking down the Dodgers or taking down the Phillies or the Dodgers, I guess, in the NLDS, and then taking on one of the other one in the NLCS. I want to go through the best teams to win that World Series. You feel like you get through those two. Hopefully you don't have a letdown against whoever's coming out of the American League. I feel like the best teams are in the American League. I'd put the Dodgers, Braves, Phillies ahead of anybody in the American League right now. But I get it. Health is the big thing, and being healthy at the right time and hot at the right time, as Braves and Bama says, is key. We know that. Look, baseball, it can be a tough game, and it's all about everything coming together at the right moment. We've seen that in 2021. We've seen that not happen in the last 3 postseasons and many other postseasons. But I do think there's a way that you can set yourself up to have better, to be better prepared for those spots. And that's kind of what I talked about in the first segment. I think that there are ways that you can build a team, build a lineup to be more prepared for that. Pitching side of things, there's just not much else you can do except try to keep them as fresh and healthy as you can. You never know when arms are going to fall out. Tyler Garner said playing to the back of the baseball card. I think that is key as well. Just these guys not trying to do too much, not trying to be their 2023 selves, but just being who they've been for most of their career. I think is going to be key for a lot of these guys. PJ's Braves winning record against sub 500 teams. I do think that is key for getting to the postseason. Obviously, once you're in the postseason, you hopefully won't be facing any sub 500 teams. I know with the new format that might happen at some point. I hope not, but getting to the postseason, certainly want to take care of business against the teams that you should be beating, like the Nationals, a team the Braves struggled with last year. Dog Day says scoring more runs than the other team. I didn't think about that one. That's a good one there. Dog Days. Joseph Bailey, Matt Olson odd year. It is a Matt Olson odd year. Hopefully he's going to have a big breakout, and that could be a huge key. I shouldn't say a breakout, but a return to odd year Matt Olson. That can be key for the Braves offense this season. Bobby Davis, bullpen and bottom third of the order. I do think bullpen is key. That's probably what I would have mentioned as my second biggest key outside of health and outside of the offensive approach is the bullpen. What does it look like come October? Because we know what the bullpen looks like now and what the bullpen looks like come October is probably going to be vastly different. So how does that group come together over the year? What guys do you trust going into October? How many guys do you trust going into October? I think that is going to be a huge key. And then the bottom third of the order, I get that to a degree. I still think if the top 2/3 of the lineup is doing what they're supposed to do, you don't worry too much about the bottom of the order. But, having a lineup 1 through 9 that you feel pretty good about and confident about, and it's not, here comes Arcia to the plate, here comes Kelnick to the plate, here comes Murphy to the plate, and you're just trying to get through those guys to get back to the top of the order, not having that feeling and rather having a feeling when those guys come up or whoever it is batting in the bottom third that, okay, they can go deep right now. I feel confident they're going to put the ball in play right here. That is a big difference. I do agree with that one as well. Gambit Beams says getting hits with runners in scoring position, certainly something the Braves struggled with last year. And one of the things that we talked about, the Braves luxury tax says bullpen and defense. So we already talked about bullpen. Defense is a key one as well. And look, Arcia is good defensively at shortstop. I don't think he's near elite, but he's certainly above average. I think Riley is, again, I don't know that I'd put him near elite, but I think he's up there as one of the best third basemen in baseball. Although the metrics don't like him, but my eyes tell me otherwise. I thought Ozzie got better defensively in the second half, but that arm is a problem. There are double plays not turned because of Ozzie's arm, and that's just a fact of the matter. And Matt also won a Gold Glove at first base last year. Michael Harris is going to win a Gold Glove in center field some year. I do worry about left and right field, where Profar is not a good defender. Ronald doesn't rate as a good defender, and he's not. He gets bad jumps, takes bad angles. I think his speed has helped make up for some of that, and he obviously has a very strong arm. But you're just going to have to hope that Michael Harris covers a lot of ground. And then if Sean Murphy's behind the plate, he's one of the best defensive catchers in the game. So I think defense could be okay. My biggest concerns are second and the corner outfield spots. James says Sale, Strider, Schwellenbach, and Lopez. And I'm going to combine this with what Jordan Griffey said as well. 3 healthy stud starters. For me, if you can get to the postseason with a healthy Sale, Strider, and Schwellenbach, 3 S's. Somebody might need to come up with something there. Then I feel really good about this team's chances. Like I said earlier, I think the biggest emphasis is on the offensive approach and them being able to score and manufacture more runs in the postseason. But if you got Strider, Sale, and Schwellenbach, look, I'm taking them up against anybody, even the Dodgers rotation. If those guys are pitching like they're capable of, I take them against anybody's top 3. So I do agree with that. Having those 3 guys specifically healthy and ready to go for the postseason is a big key. And if you can have a 4 starter like a Lopez or somebody else, maybe an A.J. Smith-Shawver emerges, then it just gives you, that much more of an opportunity. Anthony Del Sandro says luck. And look, as much as we don't want to admit it, there is luck involved in winning a World Series. You got to have some calls go your way. You got to have some plays go your way. It's just part of the game. We're watching the second game of the season in Tokyo, and Justin Steele paints a pitch on the outside corner. Should have been strike 3 to Kike Hernandez. Instead, he fouls off a couple more pitches, gets a mistake, hits a big 2-run home run. They end up winning by 3. But still, you got to have some of those things go your way. You got to have some calls go your way. And then last one, Tony DeWolf says Dylan Cease is going to be the keys. We'll see if the Braves make any big trades at the deadline. And then Jordan Griffey also said on-base percentage for the offense. That kind of goes along with what we talked about earlier. So those are your big keys for the Atlanta Braves to win a World Series. Again, my biggest one is offense's approach. Obviously, health is up there, but more specifically, health in the rotation. Having 3 stud starters like Strider, Sell, and Schwellenbach ready to go, and then bullpen. What arms? How many arms do you trust? Those probably be my 3 biggest keys for the Braves winning the World Series in 2025. Those 3 things happen, and they're in a good place, then I think the Braves are more than capable of winning the World Series this season. All right, next we'll get into some of the news from the day and spring training action. We'll do all that here next. When it comes to fueling your body, quality matters. That's why Just Ingredients is changing the game with clean, high-quality products designed to support better health and peak performance. Just Ingredients offers an NSF-certified line of protein powder, electrolytes, pre-workout, and creatine, all rigorously tested to ensure they're free from substances banned by major athletic organizations. Just Ingredients has also partnered with 2-time MVP Bryce Harper, who trusts their NSF-certified sports line to fuel his training and recovery. Whether you're recovering after a workout or need an energy boost, their grass-fed whey protein and pre-workout deliver real results. I can attest to this myself because my wife grabbed up the free sample that they sent me, but I can tell you, she looks pretty good from it. So you will to visit justingredients.us and use code LOCKEDONMLB for 20% off. Again, that's justingredients.us. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for 20% off. And for more wellness tips, follow @just.ingredients on Instagram. Well, let's end with a little bit of news from the day. The Braves return relief pitcher Anderson PR to the Marlins. Bit unfortunate here. Had high hopes for him that what we saw in AAA last year for the Marlins could translate to the big league level. But as we talked about on our last opening day roster prediction episode, just wasn't quite as impressive enough. Now, I do like the stuff for PR, and I think he can be a big league reliever at some point. It's just the Braves had to make that decision now, if he can pitch for them now. And from what I saw in spring training, and certainly, I guess, from what the Braves saw in spring training, the answer to that was no. They just could not keep him on the roster. The Marlins were wanting to buy him back, and so they offer him back to the Marlins, and he returns to the Marlins. So unfortunate there. But now we look at the bullpen picture, and it's starting to become a little bit clearer. Iglesias, Johnson, Lee, Bummer, and Daysbel, I think they could always option Daysbel, but I think Daysbel's going to be part of the bullpen. I think that's your top 5 guys right there. And then I think Hector Neris and Aníbal De Los Santos are going to be the two of the others. I think De Los Santos, with the spring training he's had and just the stuff, again, he's been one of the more impressive relievers that I've seen all spring. I think he's going to be part of that bullpen. And that leaves one more spot open. And what you could do is you could put Ian Anderson and AJ Smith-Shawver on the roster and either start one and put one in the bullpen, go to a 6-man rotation, do some sort of piggyback situation, since Ian Anderson's not going to be long in the game. And for that matter, AJ Smith-Shawver might not be either. He's still somebody that throws a lot of pitchers, so you could piggyback those two. But there is a way I think you could keep both of those guys on the roster with that final bullpen spot. As we talked about in yesterday's podcast, the Braves did sign Craig Kimbrell, but he will not be ready by opening day, and he will start the season in Gwinnett. He could come up and take somebody's spot at some point. Obviously, Strider's going to be coming back before too long, especially with the way he looked the other day. But I still think it's going to be, 3rd week of April, that April 18th home series before at the earliest that we would see Spencer Strider. But I think for the bullpen, I know we haven't really seen Hector Neris yet, but I got to imagine that they feel good enough about letting a PR go, a Perdomo go, that Neris is going to be part of those plans. I think De Los Santos has at least earned an opportunity from what he's done in spring training. And then again, I think that last spot is going to come down to, do you want to give another reliever, that spot, or do you just want to take Ian Anderson and AJ Smith-Shawver? That may depend on what happens the rest of the spring training. That might not be decided at this point, but just with the players that are left in camp, it feels like that's the way they're going to go right now, that you're going to have Ian Anderson and AJ Smith-Shawver on the opening day roster, but we'll have to see how that plays out the rest of the way. There was an update on Jurickson Profar. He's expected to play in Thursday's game, so that will be good. Hopefully that does happen, and he plans to play the rest of the spring training games to get ready for opening day. So that's great news. Again, hopefully that continues. We see him play on Thursday through the rest of spring training. Everything goes well, and he'll be ready for opening day. The Braves released Jake Diekman. They had reassigned him the other day. They give him his release, allows him to possibly catch on with another team. You see that all the time with veterans. So that's some of the news of the day for the Atlanta Braves. But let's get into the ball game from Wednesday night, because the Braves had a pretty impressive as it goes a game for a spring training game against the New York Yankees. They win 4-0, but Spencer Schwellenbach just absolutely dominated. 10 strikeouts in this one, over 6 innings. He only allowed 2 hits, did walk about it, but no earned runs. I mean, this is, I think, who Schwellenbach is. I mean, he's not going to be a 10 strikeout guy every time. I think he has that ability. And look, not the best looking Yankees lineup in the world over there. Judge was in there, but still just a step in the command, what he's able to do. I think this is the final real tune-up for Spencer Schwellenbach. He's ready to go. Put him in bubble wrap, send him to San Diego, and let's go. I think he's going to have a fantastic year. Also notable on the pitching side, obviously, with Schwellenbach going 6 innings, not many other guys got work in this one. Amos Willingham did pitch 2 in the 3rd innings, and then Hayden Harris finished off the game, got 2 strikeouts to end it there, and he's a name to watch that could be part of the bullpen at some point this year. He's had great AAA numbers. I haven't always been as impressed when I've seen him in spring training, but certainly whatever he's doing at the minor league level is working. Big strikeout numbers there. So that's a name to watch as somebody who could be part of the bullpen at some point this season. Riley hit a home run the other way, a nice swing on a 94 miles per hour pitch on the outside corner, and he was able to shoot it out to right field for a 2-run home run. So that's great to see. I'm really excited about Riley's upcoming season. I was listening to watching the Behind the Braves episode just before I jumped on to record this portion of the episode, and that was Ben Ingram's pick too. He also is with me in agreement that it just feels like the year where Austin Riley, he's been great in the past, just feels like this is kind of his year to do something big, maybe be in that MVP discussion, that Gold Glove discussion over at third base. I'm really excited about this season for Austin Riley. And then Jared Kelenic had a couple of hits. Good for him. He needs that. I feel like there's been some better at-bats at times, not necessarily against lefties, but we've seen some better at-bats, some better plate discipline in spring training, but he hasn't exactly gotten the hits to go with that. So good to see him get a pair of hits. It was a little bit of a rougher game for Brian De La Cruz. He had 2 strikeouts and 3 at-bats. One of the at-bats that I did get to see, though, it was a battle, 3-2, fouled off some tough pitches, had some good swings in there. And again, I think he's done enough at this point to show he deserves at least to be a platoon partner with Kelenic to begin the year. So that's all my takeaways from the game on a Thursday. That will do it for this episode of Locked On Braves. Make sure that you subscribe on YouTube if you're new, hit that thumbs up button, and leave me a comment down below. Follow us on social media at shortstopball, at LockedOn_Braves on X, and Locked On Braves on Instagram. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next time.